All right, well, hello YouTube. Welcome to Dan and Bryn Start a Gym. Hopefully you enjoyed Bryn's video yesterday. I don't know why we're doing a lot more videos than usual, but we are, and so I don't know if that's for your benefit or not benefit. Hopefully this video will be contained into a short format, but it might take a little longer because we're going to go over front squats. The last video that I posted was about the three major styles of squatting: front squats, back squats, and overhead squats. And I know what some of you are thinking, well, what about lunges? And yes, lunges do fall into a category. They are still a squat, but we'll talk about that on a separate occasion. You can still do front, back, or overhead on lunges, and then lunges are part of a squat, but I digress. Let's move back over to topic, into what front squats are. Now, you may or may not remember, Lord knows I don't remember anything from last week, so the odds of me remembering when I was a small toddler and child were very, very small. But one of the very first movements you learned how to do after crawling and before walking was to stand up. And to be specific, on how to squat. And in fact, what you did when you first learned how to do it was a front squat. It is an infantile or toddler movement, and it should be practiced regularly. Front squats, or just squatting with body weight in general, low, is really important for mobility and health, hip mobility and thoracic spine mobility. There's a few ways you can warm up into that, but when we get into the complexities of what a front squat really and truly is and the amazingness of it, it's usually failure is in your core. We get a lot of rounding, thoracic rounding, or hip mobility work, okay? When you improve your front squat, your core stability goes up. It's one of the best core exercises that there is, and it's one of the safest exercises in regards to squatting, because if you fail, the weight falls in front of your body and rarely through you. If you want to watch some funny YouTube videos, look up back squat fails. There's somewhere some people get messed up. I was going to say front squat, but I didn't, so I said this one instead. We don't have to bleep that out at all, Mari. We can leave that. I don't think people watch these videos anyway, so this is pretty much just for our own entertainment. So, moving on. We'll get monetized or something like that on YouTube. So moving on, we're going to first look over what I would consider a good front squat. Now, Jordan's been practicing this for how long, Jordan, this stretch that we're going to do?
For about 3 days.
For about 3 days, okay? And we've seen some great improvements. Jordan has some pretty severe asymmetries. She's got some really, really tight hips. She's quad dominant. She doesn't use her glutes much at all. When we're going into this stretch, she's gonna pull up on her toes. She wants the weight on the balls of her feet and her heels, and she's gonna try to really get into having a nice flat back. She wants to make sure her knees are not in front of her toes. That looks about perfect. She's pushing her knees open with her elbows, and she's trying not to fall over backwards. That's why she stood up so quickly. Now, my recommendation would be there would be no reason for you to do any front squats with weight until you can get into this position. Now, some of you that work with us and actually go, well, I do front squats without weight or with weight, and I can't do that. That's because we let you use a box, and there's still some benefits into doing it without that, and we're trying to work on a squat from the top down. But ideally, in a perfect world, we would always work on a squat from the bottom up, which is what Jordan was doing there. Okay, now let's do it one more time, Jordan, and let's look at what a bad one looks like with a round back, okay, and how we used to do it. She would round her back when she gets at the bottom. She would be all folded up, kind of funny, just like that. Okay, now straighten your back out. Perfect. Now from there, raise your right arm up into the air, nice and high, okay? And we're working on getting both arms up into there. I would physically demonstrate for you, but I'm wearing jeans. And so Kevlar lined jeans, no less. So if I crash on my motorcycle, I have some ass left, but not necessarily a lot. So, anytime you do a front squat is really just when you hold a weight in front of your body. You can do a front squat with a kettlebell, with a dumbbell. Oftentimes when you hold those underneath your chin, those are considered a goblet squat, which is the same exact thing as a front squat. It's just with a different tool. So anytime the weight's in front of you, whether it's under your chin or below, it is still a front squat, okay? Now the higher the weight is up over your center of gravity, the harder and more complex it becomes for your core. So when people hang the weight down low like this, you've decreased, down low between your legs such as this, you have decreased where your center of gravity is, and you become more stable. It becomes easier to accomplish, but it's not as challenging for your core. When you bring it up, it goes underneath your chin. It is challenging for your core. And remember, when you think about your core, we're not thinking about your rectus abdominis. We're thinking about your entire core, everything front and back between your pelvic floor and your diaphragm. So, we're gonna go over a barbell front squat because it's probably one of my favorites. We won't go over all the mistakes because that would take us a lifetime to correct everything that's wrong. We're only going to sit here and show how to do it in two major different ways. Now, front squatting with a barbell requires, take the straps off, requires a lot of wrist flexibility, okay? Remember that you're not holding the barbell in your hands. You're holding the barbell with your shoulders. So before she even uses her hands, she's gonna stick her arms straight out. She's just gonna pick the barbell up with her shoulders. She's gonna step back, and she should be able to go into her squat just like that, keeping her arms nice and high. Again, the weight is held on by her shoulders. Now go ahead and rack it, Jordan. Now, the way we would want to do it is with our hands. She's going to use her fingertips, okay? This becomes sort of like a wedge. It just keeps the barbell from rolling forward when there's weight on it. Now, Jordan chose to use 2 fingers. As her wrists become more flexible, she would end up using more fingers, okay? Some people can actually grab the barbell with their whole hand in this position, but oftentimes when people do that, they're trying to hold on to the weight with their hands and not on their shoulders. Go ahead and rack it for me, Jordan. Let's go ahead and put those 25s on, so we can get a little bit more weight on there so it feels a little more natural. Oftentimes, if it's too light, you can't get enough torque on the wrists in order to have it feel comfortable with that big stretch, and that's why she probably went with less fingers than she would with more, okay? Now, when she goes ahead and she does it this time, she's gonna do the same thing she just did, but this time she's gonna park at the bottom, and she's gonna do a pause squat. Now, we're not showing you how much weight she's capable of doing, which I assure you is more than this. We're just showing some technical aspects of the front squat. When she gets to the bottom, right here, she's gonna be working a lot of thoracic mobility, okay? Just hold it there, Jordan. We're gonna make her life really hard. This extension here is really important. The weight is still on her shoulders. She's keeping her elbows high to keep that weight on her shoulders, okay? If she had stay down there, Jordan. If she had, go down again. If she had poor thoracic mobility, round your back, drop the elbows. The weight falls off the front. Drop the weight off the front, dump it. Okay? And she can no longer lift it. Most of the time that happens because of poor thoracic mobility and core stability, which are things we'd want to work on and increase. Doing things such as planks and lighter loads on our front squat so we can manage it, okay? Do you want to try to clean it or do you want to lift it together? We'll lift it together. I do not want to clean it. All right, ready? All right, now, when she's at the bottom, she's gonna focus on lifting with her elbows. Before we do that, however, I know what some of you are thinking, but Dan, my wrist flexibility sucks. It's absolutely terrible. What would I do? Typically, you can grab any sort of lifting strap that Jordan's using. That's what we use. You can use a piece of a towel, anything, it doesn't matter. She's gonna wrap it around the bar. Mari, let's make sure we get a look at this. She's gonna grab onto the piece of material as close to the bar as she can, okay? She's gonna grab onto it like Homer Simpson grabs onto Bart's collar. Then she's gonna run her arms underneath it just like she would if she's doing a regular front squat. Now it's important to remember that she is only using the straps to help it to keep her elbows up. The weight is not on the straps, the weight is on her shoulders, okay? In my opinion, it's not quite as stable as using your hands. Just knock out a few reps, Jordan. It's not quite as stable as using your hands, but it'll do in a pinch until you gain that flexibility. When she's at the bottom, she should work on lifting her elbows and trying to drive up through the floor. That looks great, Jordan. Go ahead and rack it. So, there you have it. Some of our front squat explanations on the how-to. Remember that the front squat is more important to master than the back squat. Somebody who can front squat well can usually back squat very well, or equally as good as they can front squat. But somebody who only back squats rarely can front squat well, and then their mobility begins to decrease, and we eventually find some asymmetries and some injury potential, unless you're an amazing human being, which I'm sure some of you snowflakes are amazing human beings without warranted or reputation of having need be. But I digress. Move on. So, I would ask normally if there were questions, but there's nobody here but you, and well, you can't really ask questions. Unless we did YouTube Live, which would be a possibility. Jordan, Mari's saying no.
So dangerous.
All right, bye.